Did you know that Artemis I completed its successful uncrewed mission just last December? But things are believed to change pretty soon. That's because, building upon the last successful mission, the spacecraft's agency has decided to rake in some major changes by introducing a 4-member crew team for the first time in almost 50 years. Among the crew is the first woman, the first person of color, and the first Canadian ever to go on a lunar mission. Detailing her excitement on this new change, Director Vanessa Wyche, NASA Johnson Space Center, has stated that all 4 astronauts will represent the best of humanity as they explore for the benefit of all. Further adding that this mission paves the way for the expansion of human deep space exploration and presents new opportunities for scientific discovery, commercial, industrial, and academic partnerships, and the Artemis Generation. But hey, if you think that it is this crew member's news that has Artemis currently headlining the space news, you might want to think again. Recently, news of the Artemis II has also been circulating around the web because, quite surprising, its agency has announced that quite soon Artemis II will start its first travel and orbit around the moon but not land on it. If you just went, huh, but why? Believe us when we tell you that there is a very good reason why. If you're curious to find out, then watch this video to the end. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our channel so far, please subscribe and hit that notification button. With that said, let's dive right in. Coming to the point, according to space reports, Artemis II, which NASA aims to launch in November 2024, will take the 4-member crew on a test once around the moon and back. It is believed that the approximately 10-day Artemis II flight test will launch on the agency's powerful Space Launch System rocket to prove the Orion spacecraft's life support systems and validate the capabilities and techniques needed for humans to live and work in deep space. The important question arises here is, if the agency has already placed numerous astronauts on the moon during the Apollo program, why won't Artemis II land on the lunar surface? The simplest answer to that is that NASA is testing a wide range of new technology, systems, and processes during the Artemis II mission, and therefore, the test flight carrying the Voyagers will only orbit the moon and not land on it. If you're confused, but what test procedures and systems are we talking about, don't worry, we've got you covered. For starters, you see NASA is adamant about using the Artemis to test procedures that have never been tested in an actual spaceflight environment. These procedures are very important for the agency to help collect data that will inform future Moon and Mars travel plans envisioned under the Artemis program. And what better and safer way to test these than sending out a lunar fly around in space? So what exactly will the spacecraft help physicists test? Broadly, Artemis II will be quite similar to Artemis I in that it will be another shakedown cruise for the Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft. The only difference is that this time around, especially with a crew on board, Artemis II will help test Orion's human-centric systems such as life support, communications, and flight controls. Detailing on this, NASA's Mike Safran, Artemis mission manager, in an agency statement quipped that the unique Artemis II mission profile will build upon the uncrewed Artemis I flight test by demonstrating a broad range of SLS and Orion's capabilities needed on deep space missions. Safran was also heard saying that this mission will prove Orion's critical life support systems are ready to sustain our astronauts on longer duration missions ahead and allow the crew to practice operations essential to the success of Artemis III. And because radiation levels of the deep space environment around the moon are much more intense than those found in low Earth orbit, where the International Space Station resides, NASA will therefore need to gather data on Orion's ability, while at the same time, it will have to ensure that the selected astronauts are safe and healthy throughout the mission. What's more than that, in addition to checking out the life crew support systems, Artemis II will be used to test how well Orion can maneuver in space under human control. To observe this, once Orion has reached high Earth orbit nearly 24 hours after launch, it will separate from its interim cryogenic propulsion stage, or ICPS, essentially SLS's second stage. And once Orion is separated from the ICPS, the crew will use the spacecraft's onboard controls and cameras to line themselves up with the discarded second stage booster in order to test the capsule's handling qualities and related systems. After this procedure, Orion will use its Airbus-built European Service Module, or ESM, to execute what is called a translunar injection, or TLI burn, a propulsive maneuver that will place it on a path towards the moon. When this happens, Orion and its crew will then swing some 6,400 miles or 10,300 kilometers around the far side of the moon before embarking on a 4-day return trip to Earth. In conclusion, Artemis II will not land any humans for now on the moon because so many of the hardware and software systems, maneuvers, and procedures involved with NASA's future moon missions have not been tested, especially not by a human crew or while under remote control. It is also true, if the crew even wanted to test things out, many of the hardware elements that will be required to land humans on the surface of the moon are not yet completed. For instance, SpaceX's Starship reusable rocket, which NASA has selected as the Artemis program's first crewed lunar lander, has not yet made an orbital test flight around Earth, which could be a risk if tried out right away. Likewise, NASA and its associated contractors are also still in the development process of the moon suits, next-generation lunar rovers, and other pieces of hardware that will be required to operate on the lunar surface. One of the key components of future Artemis missions, therefore, will be Gateway, a moon-orbiting space station that will be used as a hub for astronauts going or returning from the lunar surface. And if you're wondering what will then transport the astronauts to the Gateway, currently in NASA's Artemis program plans, Orion will transport astronauts to Gateway, at which point they will transfer to a SpaceX Starship for the journey to the lunar surface and back. So when is the construction of the Gateway in lunar orbit starting? You see, NASA and its international partners plan to begin construction of Gateway in lunar orbit in the next couple of years. The first selection, the American-made habitation and logistics outpost, HALO, could launch as early as 2024. And so there you have it, folks. Without the key hardware components, namely Starship and Gateway, the Artemis II currently does not have a way of getting to the lunar surface and back. And this is exactly why Artemis II will only orbit the moon and not land on it. But still, no doubt, even without touching down on the lunar surface or orbiting the moon, the mission is creating as much hype as astronomers believe that the mission will generate the data needed for NASA and its international partners to put human boots back on the moon just a year or so later if all goes to plan. NASA aims to launch Artemis III, which will land astronauts near the lunar South Pole in 2025, though that target date, for now, is in its preliminary stages. But with science and space technology advancing rapidly every day, we are sure that the day isn't far when we will see some crazy progress real soon. With that said, what do you make of the news of Artemis II only orbiting around the moon and not landing on it? Do you think that the next year we'll finally be able to land crew on the moon? Let us know in the comment section below. Also, if you enjoyed watching this video, please press the like button and tap subscribe to stay notified and keep watching amazing videos about space telescopes, NASA news, and other space updates. See you in our next video.